bite your tongue, bite your lip, bite back the tears. Just look at the pages that you got in your hand. When it's done, say, thanks, guys. And then if you need to, excuse yourself and go into the powder room and cry. I've done that. So the point is, you be careful with somebody else's baby. You also be careful of their heart. And my thing is, I have not necessarily made friends that way, but I have avoided making enemies.
Okay. So you wanted to go into the diplomatic corps then when you were younger?
No.
Okay.
Remember, I can't follow politics. For current events class, you're supposed to go you're supposed to go find something interesting in the newspaper, right, and bring it in and talk about it. I'm like, I don't even know how to do that.
Well, listen, we're into COVID-19 right now, unfortunately. It never seems to go away, and it's got COVID-21, I would call it. So let's talk about Rodney the Rat that you were talking to me earlier. What the H is that? And none of your other works are anywhere close. Rodney the Rat?
No, they're not. Rodney the Rat. Okay, so here's the deal. Because of COVID-19, I have two pieces of work. Rodney comes from the fact that I've had fruit rats in the house maybe 3-4 times. They're a lot of fun. Not. We got screening. One time they got in again because the cable guy ripped out the screening and didn't bother to tell me because I'd blame him.
Of course.
And then the last time, I can't remember where. They got in because they saw an old cable that was disconnected, and they wanted in so badly. They chewed the cable so they could get into the hole.
I see.
So I finally hired a real guy, and he came out, and he's just a sweetheart. And he came to the house, and he went over to get supplies, and the start of Rodney just popped into my head. And he came back, and I said, I started this thing, and I recited it. And he said, how can you remember all of that? Well, I just wrote it. So what I set up, I got this whole scenario. So this is, maybe we'll do it later. This is kind of Ballad of Rodney the Rat. It's all in rhyme. You read it like a goofball thing. And what I came up with was the exterminator's name is Troy. So he's going to be Dread Ratman Troy, kind of like Dread Pirate Roberts from Princess Bride.
Okay.
And he's going to be an urban legend until Rodney meets him. And in part of the legend, Troy, the real man, actually does put wires on the end of his traps, and he'll hook it to something so the rat can't carry the trap off. He knows what he's got. So how I rigged it is the traps come alive. They can chase you down, snapping their tails. Snapping their jaws. The wires are the trap's tails, and the tails can get you by the neck and drag the rat into the jaw.
Jesus, you're going to have to recite me a couple of stanzas from this Rodney the Rat.
Well, if we have time, I will. It's pretty funny. It's pretty funny, and I'm having a good time with it. But I have a lot of story. It's hysterically funny.
Well, tell me the other COVID-19 piece.
The other one is I call it Surviving is Easy, Living is Hard, Enduring COVID and Cancer All Alone. Now, I'm cured from cancer, but because of that, I have some inconvenient stuff. And it was hard enough when my husband was alive and I had some moral support, but with COVID, the stress.
Nightmare,
the way I got the title, the way I got the title is, I think that's the more interesting thing. For whatever reason, I decided to rewatch some House MD. I really love that show, and there's an episode in season 4.
Okay.
So Wilson is House's friend, the oncologist. Wilson misdiagnoses a guy with cancer and says, you have 3 months to live. And at first, that patient falls apart. And then he comes back because Wilson brings him back in. It's like, I was wrong. It was something else. You're not going to die. And the patient pitches a fit. He's like, what are you doing to me? So this is the happiest 3 months I've ever had in my life. I sold this. I sold that. I booked a cruise to Europe and all this. And now you're taking all that away. It's like he knew he was going to die, so no more worries about the world. And Wilson doesn't know what to do, and he comes back in and he's talking to House and he says, dying is easy, living is hard. Yeah. I just don't know if I have the guts to put dying in a COVID piece yet. I think surviving is a softer word. We've got enough with the death in our faces.
Or you don't mention it at all. You just talk about the living being hard, because that's sort of the message of this, isn't it?
Right. Well, it's surviving is easy, living is hard. So enduring COVID. So the surviving I think is tough. I think everybody's going through that, and yes, it will be around. But I trust what's going on with Tony Fauci and the vaccines and all this other. I do think there will be an end to this, maybe another year, but it is getting a little bit better.
Well, we'll see. We'll talk about that later, because that's a big, how do the French say it? Crab basket that we have to talk about. Anyway, listen.
Maybe we won't.
Maybe we will. We only have 5 minutes left, so I want you to go on with Rodney the Rat right now.
Okay.
All right.
So here we go.
Okay.
It's hysterical. Rodney the Rat flopped in front of the trap and pondered his pitiful state. His nose was half gone, but his tongue was so long he could still reach the trap's trigger plate. Choosy mothers choose this. Rodney'd heard about Jif, but the only nut butter before was from almonds fresh ground humans buy by the pound at fancy organic food stores. That's why they chose this house. They'd heard from a mouse, and the neighborhood possums confirmed. The food's all organic, and though 'twould be manic, if we could get in there, we would. Mouse said, it's a sty. Lots of places to hide, and there's always great stuff on the floor. Plus, the human is lame and walks with a cane, so grab all you want, then take more. But wait, Cousin Mo said, there's a dog. Don't be a schmo, said Mo's sister, Gangster Mall Bonnie P. Go get old Blind Joe. His bloodhouse nose can tell you the breed from its pee. So Joe got a ride from Bonnie's Boo Clyde. One sniff, Joe said, you're off your noodle. It isn't a dog, not with that small a log. It's a prissy show dog toy poodle. If you're afraid of that, you ain't a real rat, and don't deserve nothin', you hear? Now get out of my way, 'cause I smell a payday. There's ambrosia apples in there.
That's really good. That's really good.
It's not bad. It's gonna have a little more talking about this place is a dump. How can she afford organic? It's funny.
Are you? Tell me. So, are you going to put that in other series of like? It's almost like a limerick, isn't it? The way it works, yeah.
It's going to be its own thing, and it'll go up as a Kindle single.
Okay.
I wish I could push it, but it's kind of writing itself. So when that happens, I have pieces that write themselves, and I give them time to breathe. There you go.
And you just go.
I also, real quickly, my online boss ran out of money, but I have a little backup cash, so I have a little more free time, and I foresee being more relaxed, being able to go back and kind of work on Rodney. It's really creative, but I'm not as stressed.
Oh.
So isn't that a dichotomy? Oh, you kind of lost your job, but you're not stressed out.
Well, I want you to call me about that. We'll talk about that afterwards. But I
true.
just
Well,
want to remind people that you are also an editor too, huh? So
uh-huh.
we have 2 minutes. So why don't you tell us about your editing services, and then
Okay.
we'll have to finish up.
There's two things that I offer, and I'm trying to get the word out dirt cheap. One is that I'm a good, not just a line editor, but I was offered a job to, a long time ago, edit a novella, and I ended up doing some rewrites. She was good, her ideas were great, and that guy came back and said, I hired a proofreader and I got an editor. Holy cow. All right. So I'm good at that, but I don't feel I should, I'll use the word rape, because people do. They charge you so much, it's just ridiculous. So to do a little bit of that, I charge like $5 an hour. It takes me about an hour to go through between 1,000 and 1,500 words, real simple. It depends on how many boo-boos I find, and it depends on if I need to circle something and say, this doesn't make sense. And what I try to get them to do is trust me. I trust
anybody when for $5 an hour. I trust anybody for less than minimum wage. But go on.
Well, yeah, but this is a favor. This is something, you show me a little bit of money and you give me in PayPal, and it's like, there we go. But the other thing that I can do is I'm make decent covers. If you go on Kindle, I've done all of those covers myself. So there are people who want to cover, but they don't want to. Why should they pay $100, $200, or even more? Why don't you come to me? We'll work out a deal. If you like what I can do for myself, there's a gazillion templates in Canva.com. It's not rocket science.
Kathryn Levison, I'm sorry, we only have 15 seconds left. I'm going to have to cut you off.
That's okay.
But the covers and editing, and you're a great poet.
Yep.
And we only have 15 seconds left, so I'm going to take it. This interview will air in the upcoming weeks. Kathryn Levison is a great indie writer. You can find her work on Amazon's Kindle, like Rodney the Rat we just read, or she read. I'd like to thank Kathryn Levison for being on our show today. My name is Richard Bont, and this is Curmudgeonly Yours, an eclectic show on Society Bites Radio. You can download these podcasts on societybitesradio.com, radio.net, or richardbont.com, and you can also listen to us on iHeart and AHA Radio, iTunes, Spotify, Sound Echo, and several other internet platforms. Thank you, Kathryn Levison. So I'd like to thank our guests for being on Curmudgeonly Yours today, and please, if you like what you heard, send me an email to richard@richardbont.com, and if you didn't, please keep your comments to yourself. Remember, this is Richard Bont and Curmudgeonly Yours on Society Bites Radio, where everything is what it seems, nothing is what it seems, and what is not said is often of most interest.